And we shall start. Okay, so welcome to this afternoon's webinar. So 3 steps to really utilise your early years classroom vegetable garden. Bit of a long name, but it's going to be a good session. We'll be looking at 3 specific steps to really get you going, and it can be tailored to people who have just started their garden, it's still a dream, or perhaps have something a bit more established. You can use the question and answer section there if you need to ask a question, and I'll come back to those at the end to answer any questions. And we'll get started. So I'm Nikki Leonti, I'm the owner of Tiny Chefs. Tiny Chefs has been going for just over a year now, and I'm based on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. I have a couple of centres here on the Sunshine Coast and some in Brisbane and one in Toowoomba who are currently using the Tiny Chefs program, and that's the cooking program. I've also teamed up with the Stephanie Alexander Kitchen Foundation, and they recommend any early years inquiries straight to me, which is fantastic. The Stephanie Alexander Cooking Foundation is an Australian-wide cooking initiative by Stephanie Alexander, and they get a lot of funding to help schools to implement a cooking and gardening program, which is fantastic. So their program is aimed at 8-year-olds to 12-year-olds, and my program is a little bit different because I aim for 3 to 8-year-olds. And that's why they do recommend my program for the early years, because theirs is definitely not quite fitted for the younger years. And I will be releasing the gardening program in a couple of weeks, which is why I've got this beautiful webinar here today, so that we can kind of give you an idea of what will be included so that you can get excited about joining me for next year. So, or if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, you've already started, so you could be joining me very shortly. Okay, let's get started. So I just want to welcome everyone who's here today and those who are listening after it's been recorded. If you could type into the chat section that you can hear me, that would be awesome. If you're having any problems with the audio, you can head to www.tinychefs.com.au/webinar-problems. Obviously, if you can't hear me, then that would be a waste of time. But if you can, hopefully you can see that. And I've put in some frequently asked questions there, so hopefully you can get that addressed and join us very shortly. If it's getting a bit too stressful for you and you're having major issues, it will be recorded and it will be available tomorrow, and you'll receive an email tomorrow with the link for that. You can use the chat function or the question answer function to ask any questions. And as I mentioned earlier, I will be answering all those at the end of the session. Okay, so I would like you to tell me in the chat function, who of you here have an established garden, have only just started gardening, or have no garden yet? Now, I'm just going to quickly go back, and you'll probably get a bit of a funny looking screen. But I'm just checking to see what people have got at the moment. Looks like some people have just got their dream happening at the moment, which is awesome. So I'll be addressing it from all different avenues. And Julie, you've got your garden there, but it needs a bit of love. Love that. So that generally is what a lot of people are kind of at the moment. So let's get going, and I'm going to help you with that. So step 1 is looking at cleaning it up with what you've got. So we're going to make a plan, and that could be with or without the children. We're going to look at what you need and what you've already got, and then organise how we're actually going to get that done. So first of all, if you've got a garden already established, we need to make a plan of how do you want your garden to look. So we need to keep in mind that we've got little people, and they're so energetic. So they want to get in and be able to reach everything. So you've got to make sure your garden is at the right height and also at the right depth. So they've got to be able to reach into the middle. Now, if you've got an established garden and that's just not happening, what I really suggest is that you plant just around the edges so that the kids can reach that. So the main element of the garden, so building the structure of your garden, whether that's in a raised bed, if it's just digging up the soil, or if it's in pots or troughs, however you want to do it, that is really best done with just you and your colleagues and perhaps parent input. But making a plan with the children is an amazing learning opportunity, because you can sit down and talk about what kind of plants they want to plant, so what veggies, what herbs, and they can get really excited about the types of things that they like. Perhaps they don't know what they like, so you can get exploring. We also encourage them to look at how much space do they need, how much sun do they need, so there's a little bit of research there. So there's a couple of activities. I do address this in the gardening program coming up shortly, and what I suggest is that you get your shrubs, so a picture of your vegetables or herbs, and cut them out, and then have a outline of your garden, draw on some butcher's paper or something like that, and the children have to kind of stick it down so they can plan out what their garden's going to look like, keeping in mind the sunlight, how much space they need, and how much maintenance they also need. So that's an awesome activity to do with children. Now, if you have an established garden and it's not getting enough sunlight, that is quite a bit of an issue, because you're not going to grow anything. What I do suggest is, if perhaps you've got a trough or pots, or however you have your garden, if it can be moved, I suggest you put it on wheels or something like that, so you can move it out into the sunlight when it's available, and move it back to perhaps somewhere more suitable for everyday play and maintenance. So it definitely does need some sunlight, and also some easy access to water. So for those of you whose garden is just a dream at this stage, I suggest you really go out and explore different options, keeping in mind that you do need some sunlight, but you don't want too much. So it really depends on your plans. And you also need to have good access to water, or perhaps you can look at putting together a large container trough that some people use so that children can access water quite easily, because they can only carry a certain amount at a time. So all these things need to go into your plan. So if you've already got your established garden and it definitely needs some love and attention, I suggest you look at how you want that to be. So put those suggestions that I've just mentioned earlier, put those into place with the children, or with parents, or with colleagues. So get an idea of, and have a plan for what you want established. And now we need to look at what you actually need to get that going. You definitely need to have some stakes or some kind of support for your tomatoes and beans, etc., because they need that support. So you could use anything that you might have rolling around in your storage shed, or perhaps parents might have something as well. So look at what you've got already rather than having to buy things new. We're looking at sustainability here. So recycling is an awesome way to get your garden going without spending any more of your budget. So other things you need to look at is, do you need some better soil? Could you perhaps include a worm farm or a composting bin so that you can teach children about that to improve your soil? Maybe you need some weeding and things like that. A lot of this stuff you don't need to be purchasing anything extra, and you can be talking to parents for cut-offs for some thriving seedlings they might have in their gardens, or also plant like nurseries, Bunnings and places like that who quite often will donate things to not-for-profit kindergartens, or perhaps childcare centres need to look at some funding as well from within their budget. So you can look at what you've already got rather than having to buy everything brand new. It's actually really simple. My son and I built our own garden here. It's all in pots, and you get some potting mix, and we use liquid fertiliser once a week, and also worm juice when I can get some. We're still putting together our worm farm. So it's really basic to get things going, but you've got to maintain it, and we'll talk about that in the next step. But looking at really building that up. So how we're going to get this done is looking at a working bee. So we have working bees scheduled 4 times a year, every term, and we get parents involved. So you could put a list together of the different tasks you want done. Perhaps you want to weed the garden or build the garden in the first place. Take everything out and start again is another option if it's really had it. And write all this down for your working bee parents to get things going. If you don't have a working bee, you could also look at putting together a schedule for those parents who do come in on a regular basis, and they could perhaps take on some of those tasks. Or as a staff or class, you could look at how you can get that going so you can establish your garden and get it thriving. So hopefully you've got some great ideas of how you're going to get started now. And I have a really awesome tip actually. I was at a gardening expo the other day, and this amazing gardener had this beautiful presentation. I just loved what she was saying, and I had a question because I keep getting these bugs eating my kale, and I love kale. So I was getting a bit disappointed because every time it would be nearly ready to harvest, I'd have nothing left. I asked her, how do I get rid of these bugs? And her simple answer was put in a bird bath, because the birds will eat those bugs that keep eating my kale. This is an awesome idea. So, you've got to think outside the square. I'm all about organic, and, we've got little hands all over these plants, so we don't want to be spraying them with pesticides and things. But look at organic ways. I give you loads of tips in the gardening program, but you can ask parents for some tips if you're not really a gardener. So that's an alternative that I wanted to quickly share with you because I thought that was pretty cool. All right, let's move on to the second step. So once you've got your garden and it's looking amazing, quite often it doesn't last very long. So step 2 is putting together an activity chart, because I don't want to call it a chore chart. I think an activity chart sounds a bit better. So we look at what tasks need to be done to maintain the garden. We're going to draw up a chart and then look at how often these tasks need to be done. And we're going to alternate on a weekly or fortnightly basis, however your program runs, and get the children rotating around so they get really hands-on with all the different tasks. So some of the tasks that need to be done include watering. That needs to be daily through the summer over here on the Sunshine Coast. So you'll need to look at how much water your plants need that you've got in your garden, and depending on your climate. So we need to be fertilising. I do it once a week. You could do it with worm juice or using your compost. Again, you'll need to decide that based on your own plants. Things need to be weeded. We need to look at harvesting. So I harvest my lettuce daily, but the tomatoes are just whenever they arrive, so, which at the moment is pretty much daily, which is awesome. So you need to write down the tasks that need to be done to maintain your garden. And then I have put together an awesome chart. So if you're a Tiny Chefs Academy member, you don't need to worry about it. I've already got it ready for you. It's in the members section. And I'll link that up with the notes that you get tomorrow. But you can draw up a chart. You put your tasks that need to be done. You put the days of the week that your children are there down the side, and then you can look at how often these tasks need to be done. So if watering needs to be done daily, put a photo of the child, of a child, so each child can take turns in that box for watering, and so they know that's their responsibility today. If things need to be done quarterly or annually, not much really needs to be done annually except perhaps the outside maintenance of your garden. But look at the time frame that you've got with the children. So these can be really obvious that they can feel totally responsible for their garden, and then alternate it depending on how many days your children come or how often your program is running. So that's super important. Again, it's accessible in the Tiny Chefs Academy section, and that is under resources for those of you who are members. All right, so the third part of the 3 steps. So the third step is my favourite step, and that is to create a class book. So for me, this is really important because this looks at how, this is kind of your documentation side of things. So the first 2 steps are really how you can engage children and how you can address your program criteria. So for me, the program in Australia is aligned with the Early Years Learning Framework, and also align it with the National Quality Standards for those of you who are using that as well over here in Australia. I also have an international program, so it just leaves those sections out. But with the creating a class book, that's really addressing your documentation section. So I think this is so much fun for the kids to do because they can see it happening and they can, look back. So they're doing that reflection element. They can get parents to see what they've been up to, so you're engaging the community, and they can see what they've been up to. So My Garden book is what I suggest, and you can fill it with photos of your garden as you go. Children could perhaps draw pictures as well. You can scribe what they're saying about what they've been doing. And then another small element that I also put in the back is I actually get children to take this book home. So when they take it home, they can take photos of their own gardens that they're doing at home, and their parents can write a bit about what garden they've got at home, what they're growing, and take photos. So I think it's a great idea to get families involved. And the children love to tell stories about what they're doing at home, particularly those who love their gardens. So this is a great reflection tool and to really get kids involved. So I also do this with our cooking program. So we do a cookbook. And so you will have these 2 books with the Tiny Chefs program as your document about your cooking and gardening program. I'm just trying to make it as easy as possible. I know there's so much paperwork involved, so I just want to make it simple. So that's the third step about getting kind of summarising what you've been doing in your class. So this is a great tool for the whole year, and it looks amazing by the end of the year. So it's definitely something to do. I'm not sure if any of you out there do it already. Okay, so I mentioned briefly through the thing about the Tiny Chefs Academy. For those of you who have been on my website, you'll see that I've got the cooking and gardening program, which is for your classroom. And it will save you so much time and hassle because I've put together a full year program. So you have 4 lessons per term. So it's broken up into 4 units throughout the year that you can do. And it's about integrating it with your current cooking and gardening program. So, some people might think, oh, but, I just kind of go with what the children are doing, which is awesome. But I want to add to it. So I want to teach the children how to do some, about exploring other fruits and vegetables and herbs and things like that they may not be aware of. So the program does address those. It teaches you, it shows you how to incorporate all that into your program, how it achieves the different elements of the Early Years Learning Framework and the National Quality Standards. And I also give you videos of me doing each of the cooking sessions, of me setting up the worm farm and all those kinds of awesome stuff. So if you're not confident, it'll give you all the skills that you need to do that. So I also offer monthly online professional development sessions. So these are based on different elements of cooking and gardening. So these are free once you're a member, and you can just access them. You can access the recordings if you're not available. And there's also a centre membership. So you can just pay the 1 membership and all the staff in your centre can access the program and use it in your centre, which is an awesome way to get everyone on board. So that is something that I wanted to share with you. And at the moment I'm offering for a gift. So the Kiki K, which is my favourite stationery store in the world, have an amazing foodie gift pack, and it's worth $59.95. And so if you sign up before the 15th of November, which is next Friday for those of you who are listening, who are signed in right now, it's next Friday. So if you sign up, I'm going to send that straight to you free of charge as well, and you'll get that to have for next year. So it's an awesome folder. There's a tea towel, stickers, pen, all sorts of goodies, which I love goodies. So now let's get back to creating your action plan. Now, if you didn't get a chance to download the webinar handout, you can still download that anytime, and you can kind of go through this action plan in the notes there. So you need to sit down and look at creating a plan of how you want your garden to look. So whether you want to get your colleagues' input, parents' input, and children's input, sit down, put that together, and look at how you want it done. Because if you don't have a vision for your garden, you're kind of just doing this and that and the other, and nothing really comes together. So you want to get a plan, and you want to be focused on getting it done, because you need to be thinking that you don't want to be moving this after 6 months after you've put in all this hard work. You want to have it ready to go so that you can just get this garden up and looking beautiful. It's in the right amount of sunlight, you've got water, you've got everything there. And as I mentioned earlier, you can also put things on wheels if you've got pots or troughs. If you don't have great access to sunlight, particularly for those centres who have a lot of undercovered areas, shaded areas, which is where your garden probably will sit for some of the time when the children are engaged with it. But you will need to be able to move it to some sunlight somewhere else in the day. So that's important. So have your dream garden mapped out. So that's your first step. Second step, put together your maintenance chart. So this is your activity chart, which I was talking about before. List down the activities that you need to get done. Write down how frequently they need to be done against what days your children are in. Sometimes you're going to be left over with some tasks to do, but that's cool, because this is a really important element of your sustainability plan for your centre, and it's a great, great thing to teach children how to garden. So sometimes we're going to have to put in a little bit of extra work, but I'm trying to make it as simple as possible for you. So I have got a maintenance chart or activity chart ready to download for all those members, which are in the notes. So put that together, and I suggest printing off photos of the children so they can stick them on to where they're so they feel responsible for their particular activity for that day or that week, however you want it to work. So the last part is really how to bring all that together, how to bring your community involved in your garden, and that's through your My Garden class book. You can name it whatever you like. I'm not overly creative with with title pages, but I'm going to call it My Garden class book, or Our Garden. That's probably better. And put that together so you can really document how you're going throughout the year. You can get parents involved. You can get grandparents involved. They're actually really useful for ideas of getting rid of bugs the organic way. And you can also get people like Bunnings or your local store to get involved. So by showing them your book, or they could also put a bit of advertising if they wanted to on the back. I don't know. You can get creative about how you can get your funding, because I know that funding can be quite limited. So I would love for you to share your creations with us. And you can do that on Facebook or Pinterest. You can access my Facebook and Pinterest accounts through your emails that you've got at the moment that I've been sending you through to remind you of this awesome webinar. And now I'm going to open up to any questions. I've just got to close this screen down so I can look at all your questions. But if I don't get time to answer your questions now, you can email me, nikki@tinychefs.com.au, and I will be happy to answer all those questions. I'll probably be answering them tomorrow. So look out for your answers. But if there's absolutely anything I can do to help you, I'm really keen to help get as many kindies and childcare centres and family daycare centres on board with their garden and cooking program. So even if you've got cooking questions, I'm cool with that. You can ask me anything. And don't forget about the free gifts, because I'm really excited to be sending those out, because I really want one of those. The foodie gift pack from Kiki K worth $59.95. That's pretty cool, and that's going to be sent to you if you sign up before next Friday, the 15th of November. So let me check out some questions. If you need to go, I tried to fit it in half an hour because I know you're super busy and it's probably been a long day. And you can always come back because you're going to get the recording. and you can come back and listen, but you will get the handout or the PowerPoint slide, so you'll be able to go back and reflect if you need to get some more tips. So I'm going to close this screen. You're going to get a bit of a grey screen for a second, but that's okay. Nothing's gone wrong. Hang on. All right. Okay, so I've got a couple of questions here. So the first question is, if we've already started our garden, oh, I'll just wait to finish typing. Okay, so if you've already started your garden and you haven't given enough space to the plants, what should you do? That is pretty simple. You can just move them if it's only been quite recent, but even if they've been there a while, you can still move them. You just need to be quite careful. Really research about the spacing of the plants. Although I actually throw all my lettuce in, because lettuce I don't think need that much space, and they're growing, they're thriving, and it looks really cool when they're all growing together nicely. Because the lettuce is a kind of a plant that you can harvest quite regularly, you've got to make sure you harvest the lettuce, otherwise it just grows out of control. So that's a really good question. Thank you. With sunlight, if you've got plants, how much sunlight do you need? That is a good question. So when it comes to sunlight, you've got to really depend on the plants. So if you've just got the one trough or something like that, you'll just need to move your plants that need a lot of sunlight into, just kind of have to maneuver it. If you've built a raised bed, then perhaps you could look at, I don't know, perhaps shading some of the areas, some of the plants that don't need all that direct sunlight. That's a great question. All right, another question from Julie. My kids are very hands-on. It gets really messy. Yes. We don't want to use plus because we want to keep the garden area as natural looking as possible. Okay, that's a great idea. I've actually got some awesome, it's like shade cloth. I got it from a camping store. It's green. It looks really cool. And the dirt actually falls through that, so it doesn't get extremely messy there, and you can move it. That is an option. And then it also, they can wipe their feet to then get back into the classroom. If you are using your garden in the classroom, you can also put that down. But yeah, you'll have to sweep up afterwards, but at least you won't be getting that kind of mud, dirt footprint around your classroom. I hope that answers your question there. All right, if you are joining us on Skype, you can also just raise your hand. Oh, everyone's actually joining us online, so that's okay. All right, was there any other questions? Don't forget, if you had any other questions, you can also email me at nikki@tinychefs.com.au, and I'll be answering those as soon as possible, and probably tomorrow. I don't think I'll be doing them tonight. All right, so if you had any other questions even about the Tiny Chefs programs or how you'd like to get involved in any other ways, please let me know. I'd love to hear from you, and I look forward to hearing from everyone. Come and join me on Facebook or on Pinterest and share your gardens, because I'd love to see them. I'd love to see what the children are up to. That's my favourite bit. All right, so I will talk to you all later. Thanks for coming. See ya.